So this is going to be back from Unit 1. So this is 1-3. And we are doing midpoints. Okay, and midpoints is really just the idea. We're going to do something similar to yesterday where we do finding missing lengths of value, or missing lengths of segments. There we go. Okay, so we're going to start with that definition of a midpoint. Okay, and a midpoint is the point exactly halfway between the endpoints of a segment. Sorry. Okay, so for example here, if we have a line, we're going to put the dot right near the middle, the other point. So I have J, P, and H. So if it's exactly in the middle, and I know that this is 5 miles, JP, that means PH has to be the exact same. So that's also going to be 5 miles because P is right in the middle. Even though I didn't draw it exactly in the middle, it's going to be the same. So we know that P is the midpoint of segment JH, because that's the whole segment, and P is the midpoint. And what that tells us is that these two parts are going to be the same. And so remember in geometry, when we say the same, that really means that they are congruent. That was a really weird congruent sign. Shouldn't be using pen, sorry. JP is congruent. There we go. It's a little bit better. Remember, it's an equal sign, kind of with that squiggle, to PH. So that means they're the same. They're equal. 5 and 5. All right. Other word for today is segment bisector, which is really similar to midpoint. Okay, and a segment bisector is a segment line or plane that cuts a segment in half. We're going to do an example in just a moment. All right, we have 3 examples, and then we are going to practice. I don't know. All right, so example 1. If point L is the midpoint of JM, segment JM. Okay, but now we're going to talk about the distance of JM. So remember, with distance, we don't use that segment line. We just say JM equals 49 inches. And I want to find ML. So first thing we're going to do is when we get a problem like this is we're going to draw it out. Okay, get that visual. So I'm going to draw a line. I always like to use the lines on the paper. Helps me. And I know point L is the midpoint. So we're only talking about 3 points. 1, 2, 3. And L is the midpoint. So L is going to go in that middle. And it's the midpoint of JM. So JM. technically these could go in either way. Okay. So, JM, the whole thing is 49 inches. And we know that these two are congruent. They're the same, so we can use those tick marks if we need to. So if I take 49 and I split it into 2, so I have 49, split it into 2. Split is the same thing as divide in math. So we're going to think 49 divided by 2, and that's 24.5. So ML equals 24.5, and we want to label it inches. Okay, because if we have 24.5 and 24.5, and we put those together, we'd get 49. Okay, number 2. This one's a little bit longer, but we know T is the midpoint of CK, segment CK. And we know that P is the midpoint of CT. And TK equals 54 feet. I want you to find PT and CK. So PT, CK. That's our goal, to find PT and CK. So we're going to draw a line. I'm going to just start with this first part. T is the midpoint of CK. So I'm going to draw a line. Put a midpoint. Okay, T is the midpoint of CK. All right, now P is the midpoint of CT. So I'm looking at C to T. So I'm ignoring that K because that's on the other side. And P is the midpoint of that. All right, we know T to K is 54 feet. So we need to find P to T, this part here, and then the whole thing, C to K. So we need to use this idea of midpoints. So we know that P is a midpoint of C to T. So we know that these two are the same. But now if we ignore that P just for a moment, we know T is the midpoint of C to K. So this side and this side have to be the same. So C to T has to be 54 feet. And then we know these are congruent. These are the same. So we can do 54 divided by 2. And we get 27. So that's our first one, is P to T is just 27. All right, now we do need to figure out what is C to K, this whole length here. So there's a couple ways we could do this. We could do 27 plus 27 plus 54, because those are all the small parts. Or we could do 54 plus 54, okay, because these 27s make the 54. So really it's like we're adding them and then we're adding that. But 27 plus 27 plus 54 will give us 108. Excuse me. So CK is 108 feet. All right, we have one more problem. Number 3. Number 3 you need probably at least 5 lines for. So if you're running out of space, you might need to do it on the next page. So number 3 is line P bisects segment TM at point K. And we know FM is 7 meters. And TK is 13 meters. Our goal is we want to find out what is TF. So this one, there's not enough information from the word part of the problem. So this one you definitely would be getting a picture because you have no idea where F even is. So the picture looks like we have a segment to start off with, TM. Okay. And then there's a line that bisects it. So bisect, remember, means to cut it in half. So we're actually going to get a midpoint, and the line is going to go through that midpoint. And it can go through at any angle. It doesn't say anything, so I'm just going to do a little bit slight angle. Wasn't quite through that point, but that's okay. And that's line P. So we make that little P right by that arrow. And the point where they touch is K. So we now know TK is the same as KM. We're going to keep that in our mind. Okay, point F. This is the part where it doesn't tell you where point F. Point F is right around here. Okay, now we're going to label. We know FM is 7 meters. And we know TK is 13 meters. And we're trying to find T to F. So I know T to K, but in order to get from T all the way to F, I need to know what this KF is. Okay. We don't know if F is a midpoint. It doesn't tell us that. We can find out shortly, but we don't know that's a midpoint, so we can't just say 7 and 7 and call it good. What we do know is that it bisects, so it cuts it in half. So this K ends up being a midpoint because it cuts it in half. So that's going to be 13 because both sides are 13. And then to get rid of the 7, or to get this part, we're going to subtract. We're going to take the whole minus the 7. So we subtract 13 minus 7 would give us 6. So we know KF is 6. And now we want to find T to F. So T to F, we're going to take the first part, 13, from T to K. And then we're going to add the K to F, 6. So 13 plus 6 would give us 19. So TF is 19 meters. The box minutes are number 2. It's going to bother me. Okay. So that is 1-3 midpoints. There is a practice in the week 2 folder.